We have major breaking news. President Donald Trump is set to declare a national emergency over the coronavirus. Everything is being shut down. Congress is being told 150 million people might get infected by this, and the entire country is basically shutting down. America is closed for business. And I got to admit, while we're seeing some major action here, the entire news world is dominated by nothing but stories about coronavirus, and it doesn't matter. A lot of these things are like so-and-so said X and Y, and no one knows anything. The market's going crazy. And all I can really tell you is that it really does seem like things are breaking down. I open up a news website. I look at all these different articles. Same exact stories, nothing new, same opinions, same comments. We've been saying it for weeks. Dare I say we might enter a period of such a dramatic economic slowdown that there's not even news to talk about. Well, at least for now, we can talk about two major things. Trump to declare national emergency to speed virus response, and statements made to Congress. 150 million people will be infected with the virus. Congress is warned. Highways and airports are deserted. D.C. is a ghost town and millions of people mob grocery stores to get supplies. Let's read about the national emergency and then we'll complain about the dead news cycle. Yahoo reports, President Donald Trump plans to declare a national emergency on Friday over the coronavirus outbreak, invoking the Stafford Act to open the door to more federal aid for states and municipalities, according to two people familiar with the matter. Trump is under increasing pressure to act as governors and mayors nationwide step up actions to mitigate the spread, closing schools and canceling public events. The president said he will hold a news conference at 3 p.m. in Washington. The move would allow the government to marshal additional resources to combat the virus and also marks a symbolic turning point for the president, who has repeatedly compared the coronavirus to the seasonal flu and insisted that his administration had the outbreak under control. U.S. stocks paired gains on the news, with the S&P 500 index up about 2% at 11:30 a.m. in New York. The decree comes at the end of a week of wild swings in U.S. equities, with Friday's advance following Thursday's worst since 1987 rout. Senate Democrats have urged Trump to invoke the Stafford Act and other disaster declaration requests they say would free up more than $42 billion in funding for states available in the Disaster Relief Fund. An emergency declaration would allow a state to request a 75% federal cost share for expenses that include emergency workers, medical tests, medical supplies, vaccinations, security for medical facilities, and more, according to a letter Democrats sent to the president earlier this week. Only a few emergency declarations for public health threats have been made since the 1960s, and only two have targeted disease outbreaks. When President Bill Clinton in 2000 declared emergencies in New York and New Jersey in response to the West Nile virus. With assistance from John Wingrove, Ryan Beeney. So that's they're just talking about reporters. All right, well, this is interesting because we have this op-ed from the other day from the New York Times. It's time to declare a national emergency. Now, it's really interesting to see Trump, in sync with left-wing or mainstream press. But here we go. If there's one thing that I guess can sort of unify us, it's a global pandemic, I guess. Of course, one of the things that I find just so annoying is the incessant desire to politicize this and just attack Trump over and over and over again. I got to say, man, I'll be honest with you. I'm tired. And I say it sometimes, but I really, really mean it. I'm looking at endless news, the same stories, the same opinions, the same things said every single day. And the reason is people aren't working right now. There's not really news. So the Daily Mail, for instance, just kind of writes the same thing. Now, it's true. Congress was recently warned by their attending physician between 70 and 150 million people in the U.S. could eventually be infected with the virus. These things are happening, but been there, done that. We've talked about all this stuff. Now, in terms of the politicking, what's mind-bending to me, it's breaking my brain. Listen, man, even if Donald Trump is doing a bad job, shut up. I'm sick of it. I'm not kidding. Shut up. Stop saying Trump is bad, therefore Trump is bad. Say, we didn't have a good response on coronavirus, therefore let's get medical testing kits. And many people are saying this. My respect. You want to criticize Trump for his language, his stance, his rhetoric on the coronavirus. Fine. But instead of making your conclusion about how Orange Man is bad, make your conclusion about how we're going to help people in the outbreak during the pandemic. OK, what I'm trying to say is if someone comes out and says Trump should have been much more serious and stern with his reaction to the coronavirus. Therefore, you should follow with a therefore that says, let's ramp up production. Let's bring production back to the United States. Let's work together and solve this. Instead, it's therefore, it's time to vote him out. It's time to get rid of Trump. It's always about Trump. No, I don't care about Trump. I don't care if someone is saying, I don't care about it. You want to criticize anybody? Fine. What you should be, the reason for your criticism should not be that the orange man is bad and that your tribe should win and your party is better. It should be what we can do better to mitigate the disaster and the damage and the economic fallout from what's happening with this pandemic. I'm looking at all of these stories, man, and it's like Trump flubbed this. He should have done this. It's time for new leadership. I'm just like, oh, dude, no, it's not time for any of that. It's time for us to take care of people who are in need. It's time for us to talk about us. Donald Trump is not the cause of all of your problems. He did not make this virus. Shut up. You know what I'm concerned about? Are the elderly and at-risk people who are being told not to go outside able to get supplies? Is that Trump's fault? Shut up. Let's read this story from the Daily Mail. They say Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib confirmed early reports that Congress's Dr. Brian Moynihan has told lawmakers that he predicts between 70 to 150 million people in the United States could eventually be infected with the novel coronavirus. I'm not going to sit here and poke at Rashida Tlaib. I'm going to say thank you for confirming these numbers. It's about time Americans work together. We can complain about the orange man being bad once things get back to normal. It is a luxury in this country to scream orange man bad, to poke fun at Rashida Tlaib and the squad. It is a luxury for me and anyone else to complain about these politicians and the policies we don't like and their behaviors when we're dealing with a serious national emergency. When you are looking at how China has responded, their harsh military, the authoritarianism, the lockdown, I don't believe a word they say. When we look at Italy and we can see a mortality rate 5 to 6%, I don't care about what anyone thinks about what is going to, it's not going to be that bad. Listen, man, flu's mortality is 0.1%. We all know it. I said it a million times. Instead of sitting around on our hands saying everything's fine, we should be paying attention to how people are reacting, not the rhetoric from pundits. I guess that includes me as well, but I'm going to err on the side of caution. So you don't have to listen to me. Fine. But I think actions speak louder than words. I went out and bought supplies. I wouldn't tell someone to do so unless I was going to do it myself, and I did. I look at Italy. They're nearing capacity for their medical system, and the mortality rate is 5 to 6%. That's way worse than we've seen. And it could be possible that the only reason we think the mortality rate is around 3.4 is because China is lying. They've been lying the entire time. Now China's trying to accuse us. They're going online saying the coronavirus may have originated in the United States and the army brought it to China. Oh, please, man. We've seen the authoritarian crackdown from China. And if anything would make sense, it's that China is it's an authoritarian, polluted country where people are in these exotic food markets. Look, they've got serious pollution problems. I'm not talking about Chinese people in general. I'm talking about the country, their system of government. Yes, they have bats. The bats have coronavirus. It's spread to humans. Likely answer. Let's read a little bit more. The startling figures were revealed as many public spaces, airport streets, and highways became deserted of people in cars Thursday evening, and panicked shoppers rushed to buy supplies. Disney parks and Capitol Hill were among the many places closed off to the public, as Broadway also went dark. Dr. Moynihan's prediction underscores how severe the outbreak could become in the U.S. as the White House continues to downplay the severity. Now, full stop. As you know, before this story's from yesterday, Trump's going to declare a national emergency. All I can say, if you've watched my videos, I have criticized the president's response. I understand it's a rock and a hard place. You don't want to incite panic. So they criticize him for that. Then when he says we're suspending travel, they accuse him of spreading panic. Just shut up for once. I do not care. Okay. Local governments are reacting to the best of their abilities. The president is not the end all be all for how we should be dealing with this. Shut up for once. And you look, man, I am exasperated with these people. He originally shared the information with a closed-door meeting of Senate senior staff on Tuesday when they were told they should prepare for the worst. They say, Trump is tweeting about Sleepy Joe or whatever, and he's blaming Biden for H1N1 and stuff. I don't care about this. I don't care about Trump. I don't care for Trump's tweets about the flu. I don't care for him acting like, it's not a big deal. We have it under control. None of that I care about. I'm not going to sit here and screech Orange Man bad. I'm going to talk about what's happening and what we can do and what we can expect. Let me tell you the secret to how our government functions. There are tens of thousands of local politicians. They have more of an impact on your life than the president ever will. Yet every day, all we hear about is the president. Let's talk about preparedness. Is your local government dealing with this properly? Is your township, city, town, village, whatever, having discussions about what they can do to mitigate the problem and the economic fallout? Are they discussing supply chain disruption? Is your county, is your state, is your congressman, is your senator? It is not just about one person. It is about what you can do. Is your school, are your neighbors talking about this? Wash your hands. Don't touch your face unless you've okay, they say don't touch your face, but this is really about if you're going out, if you're touching stuff, if you're shopping, do not touch your face. We can see here New York City residents getting last remaining food at Costco in Queens just hours after state of emergency declared. What's going to be more important is how the states react to this. And we've seen, I think, at last count, 15, probably more states declaring a national emergency. I'm sorry, declaring a state of emergency. No, Trump would declare the national emergency. To all the people in government, I don't care who you are. Rashida Tlaib sharing these numbers, good, fine, I don't care. A lot of people are saying they're just trying to make the president look bad. I'm not playing that game with you right now. I don't care. I literally don't care. Let's focus on the infection rates. Emancipation Hall at the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center is empty. Disneyland is temporarily closed. Few people are seen at San Francisco's popular Fisherman's Wharf. Empty shops and passengers at Newark Airport. This is amazing stuff, man. And I'm not saying amazing is good. I'm saying this is like, as much as I've been, I had someone email me and they were like, you're riling people up, calm down. The media's, you're worse than the media, the mainstream media and all that stuff. And I'm like, yes, because the mainstream media downplayed everything. They mocked people. I'm not kidding. In January and February, there were articles popping up from these digital blogs mocking people who were concerned about this. And now look where we're at. If they had given people adequate time, but this is people, man, and said, while you're at it, pick up some extra groceries. If they said that in January, we may have been able to mitigate the raids on these supermarkets and the shortage in supplies. Instead, what they did was most of them said, who cares? Who cares, right? We didn't react. Italy underreacted. Now look where they're at. It's getting worse. In the United States, we also underreacted. And that's on the president as well. Look, the challenge I have right now with talking about Trump in this is, for one, there are too many people trying to politicize this for brownie points. I do not believe the coronavirus, for the most part, should reflect upon Trump in terms of economics and whether or not he's doing a good job over the past 4 years. But I do think the president should have been much more stern and serious, maybe a little bit more heavy-handed when he came out in the first place. But the challenge there is, I understand you can't incite panic. And now I've already heard everyone saying he's inciting panic. There's no right answer. But I do think he should have been more serious on this one. That's all I can really say. I am not going to use this. I'm not going to pretend like this to me is evidence that the president shouldn't be president. It was an unforeseen disaster that shot up in a couple of months we couldn't have expected. I will say that the opponents of the president will not stop. They will use everything to make the guy look, completely awful. And I'm like, dude, come on, man. You know what? I'm just so over it. Congresswoman Tlaib questioned Anthony Fauci, head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, about the prediction during a hearing of the House of Representatives with members of the president's coronavirus task force on Thursday. It could see 46% of the U.S. population infected with the virus at the upper end of the projection, as the country braces itself for further cases. Even at the lower projected level of infection, the estimated rates combined with the current mortality rate for the coronavirus predicts 700,000 deaths for the country's 327 million population. This is why we are not acting like it's the regular old flu. They are predicting very, very high numbers of infection and death. We are hoping that we are wrong. Look, scientists aren't always right. In fact, they're wrong all the time. That's how science works. We're constantly testing ideas, we believe things, and then we correct them once we get new information. It's entirely possible these numbers are really, really high. I hope so. The only way that prediction will come true is if we act as though those numbers are a guarantee. And if we start acting as though this is what we will see, and we take these things seriously, we can then mitigate the disaster. But humans are cursed to never understand how to move, like how to predict the next steps. If it turns out that our reaction mitigates this number and brings it down, you're going to have people going, they said it was going to be 700,000 and it was only like 100,000. I mean, that was really bad, but their numbers were so exaggerated. So what? That's the curse. If we do nothing and we say, oh, it's exaggerated, then the number will be 700,000. They'll say, if only we knew. And when we do fight back to mitigate this and take more drastic actions, then they're going to say, it wasn't even that bad. What a mistake. They don't get it. They don't understand that we're not seeing these things because we take them seriously. The same is true for incidents of terror. People don't seem to understand. They're like, there hasn't been a major incident. We have a government and law enforcement agents that are working to stop these things. Are they perfect? No. Do things slip through? Absolutely. Were we able to stop this before it started? We weren't. And it seems like it's going to grow out of control now. So let's move forward to the best of our abilities. By comparison, German Chancellor Angela Merkel warned this week that up to 70% of her country's population could get the virus. Asked by Tlaib whether he believed the projection was accurate, Anthony Fauci, head of NIAID, told the hearing, we really need to be careful with those kinds of predictions because that's based on a model. He added that all models are as good as the assumptions that you put into this model, and that with containment and mitigation, the upper end of the projection could be avoided. About 80% of cases are mild, and the overall mortality rate is around 1%, according to the latest estimate provided by Fauci to Congress on Wednesday. At the low end of the projection, this would mean about 700,000 deaths. At the high end, it could mean 1.5 million dead. And that's a 1% mortality rate. Now, this is what's important. The mortality rate is going down for two reasons. Better testing, revealing that more people have actually caught the virus and we didn't know about it, which means if you only have 100,000 people infected and 1,000 deaths, you think you've got a 1% mortality. But then if it turns out you actually had 200,000 infected you know about, mortality actually goes down to about 0.5. However, it's also due to the fact that countries are starting to crack down. Italy started taking heavy action. Maybe they can get under control. South Korea has. The mortality rate in South Korea is around 0.6%, and I trust South Korea. I think they're being honest and they're testing everybody. It may be lower than we expect, but even at 1%, we're looking at potentially hundreds of thousands dead. And here's what I want. I want all of you to remember, if in the future, if in a few months you come back to this video and it was all wrong, I want you to remember good. It is a good thing that we were wrong about this. And it was better that we overreacted than underreacted because the number would have been worse. I hope every single video I've done has been wrong. Every single one. But in the beginning, I was very much on the same. When this first broke out, there was very little coverage of it. And I said it'll probably be like SARS, not a big deal. And then it got really bad. And very quickly, I changed my tune and said, all right, I was wrong about that one. And people are still mad at me about it. Look, man, I think I'm more rational than most of these people, especially in media. They're late to the game. But I think we're looking at something that's going to get worse than we really, really expect. A national emergency is underway. It's a rare occurrence. The last time was 20 years ago under Bill Clinton. This is projected to get a lot worse. Does that mean it's guaranteed? No. It could all be wrong. And you have people saying, but look at how many people died of the flu, a high end 50,000 since October. They're talking about in June, us seeing in the hundreds of thousands of deaths if we don't get this under wraps. So look, maybe it's overhype. Maybe it's all hype. Some people think they're just trying to make Trump look bad. I don't think Italy is panicking and their medical system is buckling because the orange man is bad. I really don't see that as being the case. I think what's happening is it's not so much about the mortality rate because as we get a hold on this, we can get people to the hospital faster and save their lives. What people don't understand is that the hospitalization rate is extremely high. That means we're saving people. But if this number gets out of control and we run out of hospital beds like we're seeing in Italy now with their system buckling, the mortality rate will skyrocket. Let me leave you with one very important fact. Do you know why lethal crime is down? Why violent crime that results in death is down? It's not because people are less violent. It's because we invented cell phones. You may be saying to yourself, how does that make sense? It's obvious, isn't it? Back in the day, if someone got injured, they would be on the street with no way to call for help. With cell phones now, The ability to contact emergency services has skyrocketed with everyone, nearly everyone, being able to do it. So when criminal events happen and someone is a victim of a crime that seriously injures them, we can notify emergency services immediately, which means those people are less likely to die, which means when it's reported, we say instances of homicide have gone down dramatically. That's not because we're less violent. It's because we are saving their lives. If somebody survives, it's not homicide. Attempted murder, maybe. But there are many instances where people just get injured and we can save them. That's what I want you to consider. Not that there's a direct relation. What I'm saying to you is sometimes you have to look deeper to understand what these numbers mean. And if the numbers go down, it may just mean we succeeded in shutting this thing down before it got bad. Let's hope that's the case. I'll leave it there. Next segment will be coming up at 4 p.m. YouTube.com/Timcast. I will see you there.